Hello, everyone. Welcome to eSight Vision Central using eSight in a grocery store today on May 30th, 2025. Thank you, everyone, for joining today at our Vision Central event. And today we're going to be going over the agenda first. We're going to do some introduction and housekeeping, and then we're going to talk about the eSight Go MSRP and talk about candidates for eSight Go, and then talk about using the eSight Go in a grocery store. So just for an introduction, this is live, so things might happen. To raise your hand at the end of the meeting, Control Shift K on a PC and Command Shift and K on a Mac. There's also a raise hand button in the Teams meeting itself, a little icon that you can click on as well. This session should only take about 30 to 45 minutes. So the eSight Go MSRP, the MSRP for the eSight Go is as follows. It's $4,950 US and $6,600 Canadian. For candidates for eSight Go, as eSight coaches, we can't say, someone's exact condition would get a benefit from the eSight Go, but it's kind of some generalities that we can cover as part of knowing if someone's a good candidate for being an eSight user or not and could possibly get a benefit. So we find that those with a visual acuity of 2080 to 2600 fall in with a good range of benefiting from the eSight Go. eSight Go is designed for central vision loss. The user should have some functional peripheral vision. eSight Go can assist a variety of visual conditions, like macular degeneration, but conditions that affect peripheral vision, such as glaucoma and retinitis pigmentosa, can be more challenging to assist. So just something to keep in mind that some conditions get more of a benefit from eSight than not. So we're going into the main part of the discussion today of using the eSight Go in a grocery store. And so we're going to have a number of different sections, and we're going to start off with spatial awareness in the grocery store and using your eSight with Richard. So Richard, if you'd
All
like to
right.
get it
Well,
off,
thanks, Tyler.
welcome.
Thank you, Tyler. So, yeah, I want to talk about kind of getting around the grocery store and using your Go. And um, one of the things, to keep in mind is just our general mobility techniques to begin with. Now, before we go into those general techniques, and then we can get more specific, do remember that you can use any mobility aid that you normally use in conjunction with the eSight Go. So if you use a signal cane or mobility cane, probing cane, you can use that in conjunction with the eSight Go. If you have a guide dog, you can use that with the eSight Go. Assistive tech, it's never either or, it's always a yes and kind of thing. So that being said, now let's look at the kind of two techniques that we have when moving around with our eSight. So um, first of all, you can walk with the eSight on. It is designed for you to be able to do that, and many of our coaches like to use that approach. Now, when you're using that approach, you need to utilize your natural peripheral vision to be what you're navigating by. So that is what is allowing you to not, necessarily trip over something. In a grocery store setting, you're going to be using your enhanced vision when you're looking at those prices, you're looking at those labels, you're looking at the shelves, whatever it may be. But you're using that peripheral to kind of negotiate and navigate through the store. Okay. So that is just that's one kind of technique in general. Now, the other technique is to use your lanyard and let your eSight hang at your chest, and then walk as normal. And then when you need to pull your eSight up and look at the shelving, look at the labels, look at the pricing, then bring it up and put it on that way. Now, you might be saying, what am I going to do if I'm, pushing a cart or driving one of the little carts, or because that adds an extra layer. Because now not only are you worrying about yourself, but you now have to negotiate this thing that's a few feet in front of you. So how do you do that? Um, Once again, a couple techniques. So if someone is with you, it is always helpful to have them just walk in front of the cart, not necessarily as because you can't, you know, see to navigate, but it gives you a point in front of the cart where you can look at and see and know. Um, and that kind of gives you just a reference. And so it's very, very helpful to have someone just kind of walk in front of it, or just to the side. And then that way, because normally that's going to be the good portion of your vision will be right to the side of you and you'll see them really well. Now, what happens if you're by yourself though? Well, that's when you want to take a few seconds, just take a few seconds, get oriented. If you are using your eSight with it on and you're walking, then you want to take those few seconds, look at the end of that cart. We're going to follow and do the same kinds of things that we would do with our hand-eye coordination, but we're going to do it on a bigger scale with the cart. So instead of following our finger or following the end of our pen, we're going to follow the end of the cart. So in order to do that, we may want to lower our tilt down a little bit. We may want to zoom in one or two levels just to be able to see the far end of it. Um, and then that is how we are that's going to be our reference point. So you don't necessarily have to be seeing really far in front of you or this or that, but you want to watch the end of that cart, and at a walking pace, you're not gonna blindside somebody or anything like that. You'll catch it, in time. Um, Now, what happens when you are trying to negotiate a grocery store and it has the little displays, right? You might not even realize it's there. You might turn, and now you're next thing you know, you're in a display, which makes for funny sketches, but not so much when you are the one that's doing it. So one thing that I try to do when it comes to that is keep in mind those very basic fundamentals. So if I have my eSight on, I'm going to take that second before just moving. Just slow yourself down. You always want to slow yourself down because that's where we get in trouble, is when we're trying to do things the same way that we used to do things and the same speed we used to do things. Sometimes you got to slow yourself down for a second and take in your surroundings. And if that means that you have to do a full, you know, 360, whatever, it doesn't matter. This is about you, and this is about you being able to shop and do what you want to do. So um, look around. Now, if you have the eSight and you're using it at your chest and just picking it up, you probably will catch those kinds of displays. But if you are wearing your eSight, that's when you definitely want to, take. You could walk for a minute, pause, look around, go a little further, pause, look around. Think of it as kind of, you're on a casual, leisurely walk through the garden and you're just checking out the different plants and stuff. So all of those things are going to kind of help you negotiate the different, the different things that you can run into, the displays, the other shoppers. I think one of the more difficult ones can be little kids, but once again, stick to the fundamentals, go slow, be methodical, and you know, you you'll be fine. But that one you have to be a little bit careful of. You gotta watch them because they're little, and they run. So, um, but yeah, that's kind of your basics that you want to start with. Of course, once you are looking and you are shopping, you're going to rely on your zoom. You'll use contrast, but we have other coaches will talk to those aspects of it. But yeah, so use all of the tools you have available, and don't be afraid to reach out to us too, and ask us questions about how we negotiate.
Well, sure, that's great, Richard. Thank you. And the one thing I find with using the eSight is I found grocery shopping very satisfying. With the eSight technology, being able to kind of see things on that shelf, and the coach is going to get into like seeing produce and so forth. Being able to see that and then kind of get used to orientating myself around the store with people and displays is much easier with the eSight Go. So that was great, Richard. Great coverage of that. And now we're going to go to the next section of discussing the produce area with Jeanette. Jeanette put together a video. She wasn't able to make it today, but I have a little video here I'm going to play of her discussing the produce section, and we'll go from there. One moment. I'm going to bring it up and hit play.
Hi, today I'm going to be focusing on using eSight with shopping for groceries, and in my situation I'm going to be talking about shopping for fruit and vegetables. I typically like to shop for organic wherever I possibly can, and as much as I love organic, one of the downsides is that it can actually, you're going to find that the fruit and vegetables tend to go rotten more quickly, and sometimes they can actually be rotten in the store. So we have to be watching out for any brown spots and any irregular discoloration in the fruit and vegetables. That's one challenge that I have. The other challenge is that fruits and vegetables, depending on what they are, they can be in different areas of the store and they can be at different levels. So, for example, the potatoes and the oranges and lemons and apples and onions and garlic and those kinds of things can typically be in a very large display area, kind of all piled up in their various sections. Whereas some other fruits and vegetables like carrots, celery, salad items can be in a refrigerated area. Some of them are below eye level and some of them are above eye level, particularly if you're looking at leafy greens, leafy lettuce and herbs as well. Things like cilantro, basil, you're going to find some of those are typically higher up in a refrigerated section. And like I said, some of things like the carrots and the celery and some of those other refrigerated vegetables can be at a much lower level even than the normal fruits and vegetables like potatoes and onions and lemons and oranges and those sorts of things that are typically higher, but they're still below eye level. So one of the challenges is how much tilt to use. The tilt on the eSight defaults to 0, which is typically above us. So what I find is that between 2 and 3 seems to be the best area for me. So depending on which area of the fruits and vegetables I'm looking at, I'm going to either use level 2 or level 3 or -2 or -3 tilt. So the tilt is if you establish that's great, that's very important. Zoom I find is important. What is important about zoom is to not use too much, particularly if you're picking something up to examine it for any discoloration, any bruising, any little spots here and there that you don't want. I find that if you use too much zoom, you lose perspective on what you're looking at. So it's important that you are aware that, for example, if you use a lot of zoom for reading or looking at your computer, you're definitely not going to need that much zoom if you're looking at a piece of fruit or examining a vegetable. So I would say you err probably on the slightly lower side with the zoom. The other feature that I find on the eSight is contrast. I find that just adding a small amount of contrast, no more than 2, I would say level 1 or 2, as you'll know that the default is 0. So I find that going up to level 1 or level 2 is absolutely sufficient in order for me to see any spots or irregular discoloration or bruising or whatever you have on the fruits or vegetables. I find that the contrast really makes that pop out. So the 3 important functions that I find in conclusion in shopping for fruits and vegetables are zoom, tilt, and contrast. So good luck.
And I want to warn people of, with those leafy vegetables being in that refrigerated section, a lot of times that is so that way they can be misted. And so they have like hoses along the top where the lights are and stuff above these leafy vegetables and cabbages and things like that. And every so often they'll shoot mist down onto the produce. So be aware of that. Don't like lean forward over something to reach and get hit with water, you know, even though it's not a lot, but still you will be wearing, if you're wearing your eSight, just be cautious about when the misters are going to be hitting and stuff like that if you're able to.
Excellent. That's great. All right. And thank you, Leah. And the next section, we'll be talking with the deli section with Leah. So, Leah, if you want to talk about your section.
All right. So the deli is a little bit tricky because a lot of times it has that glass, plasticky, whatever dome, you know, shielding across the stuff to keep it warm or just protected and everything. That poses a little bit of an issue just because you are going to be getting a lot of reflection from your overhead lighting. So the main trick, as funny as it sounds, is going to be basically to bob and weave. So if you're standing in a spot, and at least where my deli location is, they have stuff in front of it as well, like breads and things like that. So you can't get right up next to that glass if you're not able to. So you, again, have the reflection of the lights. And so you don't really want to go down to that -4 tilt. You almost want to stay at that -2, which is a general straight ahead, because a lot of that deli stuff in those casings don't go too low, you know. So staying in at a -2 is still good. If you need to go to a -4, that's always acceptable. That's fine. But really, you're going to zoom in and you're going to be aware of how many layers of shelving are in those cases, and either start at the top, start at the bottom, or find just the specific thing that you want to look at. And if the reflection gets in your way, you just tilt your head or move to the side and go at it at a different angle. You can even like squat down a little bit or raise up some just to get that reflection off of what you are looking at. I tried using contrast, and that actually, to me, made the situation worse, because contrast, you know, as you know, makes lights lighter and darks darker. So if you have a glare on something, even if it's like, let's say, a ham or something that's completely wrapped in plastic. So not only are you getting the reflection from the glass, but you're also getting now reflection off of that, a glare from that plastic being shined down on. The contrast is actually tended to make that reflection, that glare, worse, because it lightens it. So therefore it's going to keep lightening it, and it sort of just covers the entire thing. So you can try contrast, but I don't think it is going to be able to do as much as it could. So really just tilt and zoom are your only things, and then just your head position. The camera, remember, is in the center at the bridge of your nose, at upper level of your eyes there. So just be aware of where that camera's at, and just know that you can relocate your position, you know, to be able to get rid of that reflection and that glare and everything. So that's it. It was very simple thing, but you know, takes a little bit getting used to be able to move and not see on the first try, and have to be aware of where that reflection is at and everything, because it's not all over. It's just in certain spots where those lights are spaced and stuff. And so might be some things that you can see that don't have a glare, and then you look at something else and there is a glare on top of it. So just be aware of that.
All right, sounds good. And the next session is going to be a point of sale area with Cosmo. Cosmo, when you're good there.
Yep, sorry, I was having trouble finding the mute button or hitting the mute button. Hold on 1 second. Sorry, the button is having issues. Come on, Microsoft Teams. What is going on? Like Tyler always says, this is live. There we go. Okay,
Yeah.
sorry. As we all know, the buttons can be tough. Okay, so when you are checking out, the first thing I like to use is the tilt feature, and you use that by using the mode button and cycling through. It's the last one on the cycle, and by default it's at tilt 0, and I like to tilt it down to 1 because the keypad to pay is way down here and you don't want to have to crank your neck down, and so it tilts down 12 degrees, which doesn't sound like a lot, but it is a good amount of distance, and so I don't have to crane my neck down. I'm looking like this. You can add contrast because sometimes those little keypads, it's a light green or light blue background with not very dark text, so adding a little bit of contrast can be helpful. And the tricky part for me is the inserting the card. Most places don't swipe anymore. It's inserting it for that chip thing, and finding the slot for it can be tricky. Luckily, they beep when you've successfully done it because it's hard to see the little screen, so it typically beeps at you when the payment has gone through. And it has autofocus, so if you do have to use the actual keypad to put your PIN number or something, the camera will adjust as your finger gets in the way and type stuff. If you don't have a big head like me, the lanyard is a good thing to do when you're out and about, like shopping, and you're gonna, even with the tilt, you're gonna be moving your head around quite a bit, and so that can just be a little added security if you're worried about that. But the grippiness of these arms, and they pinch down, I've always felt it's pretty darn secure, so I don't wear my lanyard. And one thing I always have trouble with, if it's a restaurant as opposed to a grocery store, is the tip function. And eSight helps me make sure I give the tip I want, because I don't love when I don't have my eSight around saying, hey, can you put your own tip on there? Please tip yourself this amount. Always makes me a little uncomfortable. So I always tell people, bring your eSight, because even if you don't use it, you'd rather bring it and not use it than not bring it and regret not having it.
Well, sure, excellent. And the one thing too is the point of sale is that using it, if you putting in the keypad and so forth, is just navigating, say, if it's self checkout, looking for grocery bags or looking for spots where you're going to scan your items. The contrast can help kind of define any of the lines and any of the kind of sections of a self checkout thing. Sometimes I found the eSight's been very helpful if I'm at a new store and it's a different setup, and just finding my way to that area. I can use the eSight if I'm approaching the catch or approaching the self-checkout, kind of see what areas are free or what area has less of a lineup, and pick a good lineup, which I think is quite a neat technique. I know there's been a few times where I've been out and about shopping where someone will open up a cash register and everyone rushes to it, and I won't see it in time due to my vision. Whereas eSight, I can actually say, oh, look, there's someone heading over to the cash, and head over there. And I think that's kind of a great benefit of the eSight Go, navigating those type of things, especially when it's really crowded and so forth. One general tip I'd like to add to this too: if you're new to going grocery shopping with the eSight technology, I would recommend going more of if your grocery store has a quiet period, right, or if it's a time when it's not going to be as crowded as it may be, to get comfortable using your eSight to look around in the shop, then you feel less pressure about learning the techniques and less pressure about knowing, your way around the different sections. Where if you're going, say, during, a rush hour time type thing, say after work or, when a lot of people go shopping on the weekend, it can be a bit more hectic and a bit more a stressful situation when you're trying to get used to it. Um, the one great thing I also liked with the eSight is that with my low vision, I was used to memorizing a store and memorizing, okay, what the layout of the store going to be like, and then you get used to it, and then stores, I guess, to keep people attentive, we'll find move the displays or change sections and move stuff around, and the eSight helps navigate that and find out, okay, the cheese is no longer in this section. I got it's a 1 hour over or so forth. So if I'm looking for the cereal, they might have moved that,
Jeez.
and
Yeah.
finding that with the eSight is really helpful. I also find in general too, eSight has allowed me to go to different stores. In that sense, where I mean, like, I have like my home-based grocery store and I really know it well. But if I'm out and about and I see that, there's maybe a European delicatessen that I've never been to before, eSight allows me to go there and find my way through and see the produce, the products and so forth that I want to see. And that's one thing too to keep in mind is that, you might get really comfortable in your main grocery store shopping around, but then eSight gives you that ability to take those techniques and apply them anywhere, right? And you might find a new place or a new thing you want to shop at, and you can kind of take your previous techniques and apply it to that, and kind of expand your horizon a little bit. So that's something just to keep in mind as well.
And don't forget also, if you're going out, a good way to hold on to your remote without having it around your wrist. One thing I like to do is I will thread the remote through a belt loop and then hang it from there. So that way it's still on my person, but it's out of the way and yet easily accessible at the same time.
Sounds good. Thank you, Leah.
Mhm.
All right, so we covered kind of using eSight going to grocery store, just a generalities. But if you are thinking of doing that or have questions, please reach out to your eSight coach. Definitely get into more in-depth discussions and kind of more in-depth techniques of using the eSight Go at a grocery store. But if anyone has any kind of general questions and so forth, feel free to raise your hand and ask, and Devesh should kind of will help get the questions answered. So if anyone has any questions, feel free to ask now.
Gary, please go ahead and unmute your mic. Okay. Let's try Pepper. Please go ahead and unmute your mic. Pepper, are you able to unmute your mic? I think not. Okay, let's move on to the next person. Jill, please go ahead. Unmute your mic.
Hi. I just ordered my eSight Go 2 weeks ago, and my distributor hasn't heard anything about shipping, and I was just kind of wondering who would I talk to?
For that, I would ask the distributor, and the distributor would reach out to the eSight Go representative to follow up with that. The distributor would be the best point of contact for that, and they have a person they can reach out to regarding
Okay.
that. You can also call the main number and put an inquiry in there as well.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I don't know if I'm unmuted or not.
You are.
Oh, you can hear me now?
Yep, we can.
Gotcha,
Okay.
Gary.
Smarter every day. I got a new computer. That's why you don't see me on the video, and that's why I had trouble with the audio. I'll have that fixed for the next time. I just want to say, just an overall, when it comes to something that Richard had said with regards to using your peripheral when you're navigating. I always say to us older folks, just think of it like reverse bifocals. So when I'm walking around, I'm looking below the glasses, but when I need that fine detail, I look up. So it's like reverse bifocals, and I think that's the easiest way to understand it, because you don't want to be walking around just exclusively looking through the eyewear. That's going to be a tripping hazard and bumping into people hazard. So use your peripheral vision as much as possible. And I also want to say, when it comes to shopping, when I used to go shopping with my wife before eSight, I would just kind of tag along. I was just company for her, and I spent a lot less money. When I got my eSight, I was able to actually see what was what. Magically, things were starting to appear in the cart, and she'd say, "How did that get there?" And I'd say, "It probably jumped off the shelf." But more importantly, it gave me the ability, as I got using the eSight more and more, I now shop independently. I go out independently. I can go to a store independently. If it's a store I'm not familiar with, it just might take me a little longer to navigate through the store, but I'm actually able to do everything independently. And I think one of the biggest things about eSight and what it can do for people is give them their independence. It's great for your your emotional well-being and confidence. So anyway, I just wanted to add that, and I've enjoyed this very much.
Thank you, Gary. No, that's great, and
Thank
thank
you,
you for
Gary.
your insight. Perfect.
We have one more person, Mukhtar. Please go ahead and unmute your mic.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you for the presentation. It's a good insight on the use of eSight. My question is, for those that reside outside the US and Canada, how does one procure one of these eSights? And again, is it possible to have like a demo use or a demo use on the east side before procuring one if one resides outside the US and Canada? Thank you.
At the moment, it's not possible to get an eSight outside the U.S. and Canada. Is going to be an international launch potentially later on with the eSight Go, but at the moment, you do have to be a resident of Canada or the U.S. To purchase an eSight Go. So when we are able to launch internationally, we'll be announcing that and putting that out there. With a plan to do so, but at the moment, there isn't a way to get it internationally.
And just to add to that, if you follow us on our social media handles, we will be announcing that news whenever we are ready to go for international launches. So please follow us so you can stay up to date. All
Okay,
right.
thank you. I follow you on Instagram. Yeah, thank you.
Excellent.
Perfect. Now I have Malt Brown. Please go ahead. Malt Brown, you can unmute your mic.
Sorry about that. Thought the microphone had already unmuted. How does
no
one
worries.
get? How does one get a list of the distributors in the U.S.?
The best would be the best way for the distributor list, one individual.
Yeah, I think if you could call at our 4448 number, we could get you connected with one of the distributors.
Yeah,
What
I
is
think
the-
Sorry?
What is the full number again, please?
I'm gonna post that number in the chat. You could.
It's 1-855-837-4448.
Yeah.
And calling to that number and just where you are location wise, and then we can let you know where the nearest distributor is.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
I don't see any other hand up.
Okay. Well, if anyone else has specific questions, then feel free to reach out to your coach or call in questions of candidacy and so forth. Call into the 1-855-837-4448 number, and be happy to assist you there. And thank you very much, everyone, for joining for this month's Vision Central here in May, and looking forward to seeing everyone next month at the end of June.